he made excellent meeting. And to captain the meeting, we have a person whom we call an ever-ready Toastmaster. Ever-ready is the, you all know that it's a brand given to a battery. And the reason why the brand given to a battery is two things. The battery runs longer and the battery is ready to be fitted up immediately. So if you have to call up somebody and say, anybody interested to do something, the one hand that come up first is of that of our VPPR Toastmaster Viqaruddin. Now, he's not just the YPPR of our club. He's a great marketing coordinator, not just for the club, even for the district. He's also the CGT for the area and doing a marvelous job together. We call him an international Toastmaster because anybody sends a link, I don't know how he manages time, he's there. So, you know, I don't know, every day, maybe he can easily get into the Guinness Book of World Records by attending for the person who attended the maximum number of Toastmaster meetings. So, anyway, let's now Toastmaster Viqaruddin. It's time that I hand over the mantle across to you to captain the show right now. Take on the control. The TMOD, please welcome the TMOD Toastmaster Mohammed Viqaruddin with round applause. Loud applause as you can. Come on.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, for my brief introduction. Fellow Toastmasters and dear guests, it is my privilege to welcome you all to Bahrain IT Professional Toastmasters Club. For the benefit of the guests, I would like to explain the structure of the meeting. Theme: be prepared to enjoy and be inspired. Public speaking, some people love it. We are terrified by it. Practice make man perfect, even women's also. Practice your speeches a few weeks ahead of a big day. Use this time to master each word that's come out your mouth. You are practicing how different your speeches would like to change your tone and voice in certain parts. Know the subject of your speech. Well, confidence is a crucial. When addressing an audience, it will show on the stage how confident you are. Therefore, nothing wrong with receiving feedback, either it is positive or negative. Listening to your audience is one of the most important part of being a successful public speaker. Push yourself because no one else is going to do it for you. Sometime later become never. Do it now. Success just doesn't find you. You have to go and get it. Workshop to equip champions in contest speech. By starting, I do have one role player for doing and helping me for this one. The structure of this meeting: first, we would like to start our workshop with 2 workshops, and after that we have a table topic. So guests and our players, they can participate over there, think out of the feet. So I will not take further time. Now our role player, Toastmaster Wasim, is here. So the first part of the workshop, our international speaker, Toastmaster Hesham, will speak his 15-minute speech. So you can alert him by 10 minutes, then 13 minutes, then 15 minutes, show the red signal, which already you know, the green, yellow, and the workshop for this one, 30 minutes. So you can alert him. The first alert you can give for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and 30 minutes. Similarly, for the both workshop having 30 minutes. So I will not take much time. All guests waiting for our Toastmaster Hesham International Speech Workshop. Before give him the handover, I just highlight his brief profession. He is a finance manager by profession, an amateur speaker by passion. His dream is to convert his passion into a profession. Twice a finalist at the quarterfinals of Toastmasters International World Champions of Public Speaking. Let us welcome a huge virtual applauses for Toastmaster Hesham Issa.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster of the Day, Toastmaster Mohammed Fakir, and I'm very happy that you're giving me 15 minutes to talk about the speech. And if you may allow me to share my screen to share my presentation, we'll try to make the workshop as active as possible. So I will give the audience from the very beginning some things to do, some things to watch in my speech, and a few questions that we will tackle during the workshop. Thank you for giving me the sharing permission. I hope everybody sees my screen. If anybody doesn't see it, please advise.
It's good.
Great, thanks a lot. So I named the workshop after the theme of the day for Bahrain IT Professionals Toastmasters Club. A great theme. I loved it when Toastmaster Mohammed sent it to me this morning. Be prepared to enjoy and inspire. I removed the ands and I just put it as easy as possible, and all for the sake of the speaker and the audience. We have three words. The first one is preparation. The second is enjoyment. And the third is inspiration. When we think about these three words, yes, we should think about us speakers, but we also should consider as a priority our audience. As you see, you have different diversified audience in the screen. And guess what? We are all humans, whether speakers or members of the audience. So who should be prepared? Of course, the audience should be prepared to attend the meeting or the presentation virtually or physically. But it is the speaker who should be prepared as much as possible to serve his or her audience. How do we prepare? We will go into this in details. So we've covered the first point in the workshop of tonight, preparation. And as Toastmaster of the Day mentioned, you gotta be preparing and getting ready for the contest or your speaking engagement at least a few weeks before your event or contest. The second word in our workshop tonight is enjoyment. If the speaker is not, I'm admitting somebody, okay. If the speaker is not enjoying his or her speech in preparation and of course in delivery, then definitely the audience will not enjoy it. Do you agree? So both the focus on enjoyment here is on the speaker for the audience's sake. And the third word in our workshop or theme of the day tonight is inspiration. The speaker's job and interest is to make the audience inspired whenever he or she are delivering an international inspiring speech. I'm going to deliver a test speech in a few minutes, but I would like all the audience to consider two main points. First content, and second, delivery. Content is the write-up of the speech. So for the international speech contest, when you have 7.5 minutes maximum to deliver your speech, you're going to focus to have the word count anywhere between 600 to 700 words. Why? It's because of your delivery, because you want to pause at the right moments. You want to make sure every word you say to the audience is well received and also enjoyed. When we talk about content, we said we're in the judges' ballots, and for any audience, half of your speech is in the content, in the words you say and the message you deliver. That's number one. Number two, your delivery, how you pause, how you gesture, how you do facial expressions, how you are reflecting how you feel inside, enjoying or not enjoying what you're saying, showing sadness, happiness, anger, disgust, surprise, or what have you. They say the first 50% about your speech, which is content, is king. The king of your speech is your content, and the delivery of your speech is your queen. So imagine you're dealing with royalty, your speech, 50% weight to the content and 50% weight to delivery. So I'm going to ask all the audience now to consider 6 universal emotions in the world. And they are as follows. I abbreviated each word for simplicity and for maybe writing during my speech. When did you find something happy in my speech? Where I was happy in the speech? Where I was angry or afraid? Where I got disgusted or sad or surprised? In the same way, in my delivery, I would like you to find out happiness through my face or my gestures. I want you to find anger, fear, disgust, sadness, and surprise. That's a little assignment I'm giving the audience, and it will be great after I finish my speech to handle these points or emotions in the flow of the workshop. So please, everybody, write down happiness, anger, fear, disgust, sadness, and surprise, and find them in my speech. And if by any chance you see that I didn't deliver them the way I should, I'll be more than happy to improve my speech with respect to emotions and delivery of these emotions. So now, Mr. Timer and everybody, are you ready for me to deliver the speech? If Toastmaster of the Day can introduce my name and the speech title, it will be great to make it happen. All right? Back to you, Toastmaster of the Day.
Thank you, Toastmaster Hesham, for a wonderful introduction before the speech. We really honor. I encourage our audience. There's a chat box is open, as our speaker mentioned. If you find any of the emotions, you can chat over here for the knowledge base. So I will not take much time. The speech for the timer is 15 minutes. So as I told you, you have to give 9 minutes, 13 minutes, and 15 minutes.
And the speech will be 7 minutes.
7, oh, sorry. Okay, 7 minutes. So our standard is 7 minutes, which is 5 minutes for green and 6 minutes for yellow and 7 for red. Okay, thank you. And now speech, I will call in this manner like how we call in the contest: name, speech title, and the name. So I'm calling the name, start now. Toastmaster Hesham Issa. Rise, avoid, rise, avoid, Hesham Issa.
Before COVID struck, every Friday night, my wife Ira and I went out. She would dress up, I'd shave up. And one Friday night, before we went out, I saw it in the mirror, staring at me. A round, red pimple. Have you ever had that problem? Something pops up when you least expect it. Now, most pimples go away, but some problems stay. I call them permanent pimples. Toastmaster of the day, friends, my job is a permanent pimple. I don't like my job, it doesn't like me. I don't understand it, it doesn't understand me. I know. What am I doing there? I'll tell you how I got this permanent pimple. When I was 31, I was a banker. And one thing stopped my promotion, the credit exam. Already failed it twice, and it was my last chance. With a daughter on my lap, small salary, and borrowing money from my dad, I had to pass. And I failed. So I quit. Then I met a man who offered me a job. On our first meeting, he said, "The company is big, pays well, come join us." He showed me heaven. And as I walked into that job, it was hell. Every day on my way to work, I wonder how far I could have reached if I just passed that exam. That exam was a permanent pimple. Has regret ever been your permanent pimple? For the past 4 years, my dream was to become the world champion of public speaking. Every year, before each contest, I drafted, crafted, tested, and retested my speeches. The result, 2017, one area. 2018 came third at district. 2019, first at district. 2020, first at district. A wonderful journey, but I failed to achieve my dream. Has failure ever been your permanent pimple? When my ex-wife took the kids and left, I had the biggest heartbreak. I wasn't a present dad. To this day, the crack in my heart is half healed. Has heartbreak ever become your permanent pimple? Friends, there are problems in life that cannot be fixed, just like the permanent pimple. However, if your problem cannot be fixed, how you think about it can. Yes, you have to live with your problem, but you don't have to become your problem. Every time I think about my problems, I remember that Friday night when I got that round, red pimple. That night, I asked my life coach, my wife. I said, "Ira, should I Pop it. She looked at it and said, nah, you're still handsome. Control what you can. Rise above the rest. So I decided to test her advice. A few months ago, I controlled the value I create at work. Each day, I took my job as a challenge. And guess what? I started liking my job. It started liking me. I controlled what I can and rose above the rest. I can't control past results, but I can control how I compete this season. I can control how I craft my speeches, test them, retest them, and apply others' advice. I'm controlling what I can and hoping to rise above the rest. My kids are still not with me. I can't get back lost time, but I can control how I spend time with my kids. Each night we FaceTime. We spend quality time together. We even do homework sometimes. I controlled what I can and rose above the rest. I rose above regret, failure, heartbreak by controlling what I can. And so can you. Friends, just like me, I'm sure you all have permanent problems that are like permanent pimples. You wish to do without them, but they're just there. Rise above them. And if you ever get a pimple on your face on a Friday night before you go out, don't pop it. Rise above it. Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Hesham, for your wonderful speech. I believe our audience, they enjoyed and maybe they already found. I see their reactions. It's great. Thank you to be here. And I also learn a lot from your speech. Thank you so much. So now I will not take much time and we will proceed to the workshop. Again, I hand it back to Toastmaster Hesham Issa for the workshop to be continued. Back to you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. So, who found happiness in the speech? Where did you find me saying words or phrases or lines where I showed happiness? Who can share with us? If Toastmaster of the day or moderator can advise with the audience response, I'll be really appreciating this.
Yeah, I encourage everyone, can you send me the message, whatever our speaker is asking about you, whatever you found, because before he start his speech, he mentioned
they can be open here. They can be open. They can unmute themselves and speak. That's good enough.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, as President advised, everyone can unmute yourself and you can answer the question. Speakers.
One at a time, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to stop sharing so that we can.
If I can start that.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I noticed when you said that you were happy. Where is my camera? Just hold on. Sorry. Yeah. I noticed that you said that you were happy during when you get the job and suddenly you become sad. So that's why a direct jumping from being happy to being sad. I noticed also at the beginning of your speech as well, when you got encouragement from your father, I think so, when you say, yeah?
Encouragement.
Yeah.
What the line, please, if you remember?
When you were talking about your father, the options that he gave you.
Can you remember any of them? Father. He didn't mention my father, I suppose.
No, not that. I mean, it's your family. I think about your family. I'm sorry.
My wife. No worries. Yes, my wife.
Yeah, your family. I'm sorry. I just misinterpreted. All right. So that was your wife. Yes, that's part as well. I noticed that one as well. So this is the most that it came to my mind when you were speaking, because you know the jumping was when you say you're happy, and then again directly you're becoming to the sad situation.
Great.
But I can tell you later on about your sad situation. Lots of it. I noticed those.
Great. That's really, I really appreciate your feedback, and if we can take from the audience one by one, just quickly.
Toastmaster Hesham here. I particularly like the way you mentioned that you were winning the district, won the district, and won the district next year, and then the sudden change of expression when it said district, and there's a neutral feeling. That is good. Yeah, that is happiness, and then suddenly a neutral feel out here.
Yeah, happiness and sadness, exactly. Very good. Anything about anger or disgust or fear, surprise?
Yeah.
Master Pragya is raised her hand, so she would like to share the.
Sure.
Yeah. Toastmaster Hesham, what I really liked about is the flips which you showed when a person starts expecting that, okay, maybe this is going to be there and this is going to be a positive side, and you suddenly change the whole mindset. That keeps us glued to what is going to come next. And that is something which helped me not lose interest in your speech and not make it predictable. So that sudden flip of positives and the negatives, the happiness and the sad, and different emotions of anger and anxiety and weight and everything, that was something which kept me glued.
Great observations. And it seems I'm going to mention something that I was going to mention later in the workshop. It's the misdirection. One of the best ways, as you said, to hold the interest of your audience is misdirection. You're leading them to a happy moment, and then suddenly I fail, or whatever the kind of sad emotion is. So that's a great observation. Another thing that I would like to say now, if the audience also can observe that in the intro, usually you find more kinds of emotions. And why is that? Because this general rule says, like Darren LaCroix, 2001 world champion, said before, the problem is always funny. The solution is always serious. So in the intro, you have all the options to have the anger, happiness, sadness, surprise, disgust. This is where you really hook the audience at the beginning. And whatever the problem, how serious the problem was, if you make it funny, make the audience laugh with you and laugh at you, then you definitely have engaged the audience in the very first few minutes of your speech. And again, the solution is serious. The conclusion is always very serious, but at the same time, very encouraging with the call to action at the end. So we have, I saw two more hands raised, if we can share more emotions.
Yeah,
Toastmaster Abdul and Gadar. Toastmaster Abdul, go ahead, please.
Yes, please.
Toastmaster Abdul, yes, go ahead.
Hello, sir. That's really great to have you with us. Long time, but really honored to see you.
Okay, good to see you. I remember seeing you last in Bahrain, and I was happy to actually with Siko at that time. Yes, I've noticed, as the gentleman said, when you said, district and then 2020 and then district. Now, I don't know. Some people call it sadness. I call it disappointment, which is an element missing, because there's a difference between sadness when you lose something and disappointment when you lose hope. Okay, that's one thing. And one general observation which I have, I enjoyed the speech, and in spite of your vocal variety, up and down, I still felt like it was flat somehow. So maybe an introduction of a dialogue, like between you and your wife or you and your kids, whatever, would have allowed you to introduce more vocal variety, although it's like flat within a variety, but flat somehow. This is how I felt. This is just a recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the recommendation. I'll really take it into consideration. And I've always taken your great tips. Thanks a lot to be with us.
Okay.
Yeah, so sadness, around sadness, we can find also disappointment. And that's a really valid point. And we can still share. Anybody else to share?
Yeah, Toastmaster Gangadhar.
Gangadhar.
Hi, Toastmaster Hesham. Yeah.
Hello, sir.
One interesting thing what I observed is I found most of these emotions in your opening line itself.
Yes.
Because you started with a happy moment of you are ready to go out with your wife on a nice Friday night and everything. You are so happy. Suddenly you looked into the mirror. I was seeing really what is there in it. There was a surprise element that you are looking for something. Then you turned that into a fear, actually. You found something scary in the mirror. So the surprise, fear, everything came up in that one shot, which you have shown into the mirror. So the whole emotions I connected there, I started following that. As you mentioned that another point is the sadness. Yes, when you mentioned about the district competition and all those things, yeah. So there you are shown a little bit of disappointment, I would say. I agree with the other Toastmaster mentioned. It's more than sadness, it's a disappointment. But as a one thing I want to learn, that's why I'm raising this observation. In bringing all these emotions, I found sometimes there is an unnatural way of bringing emotion. You are trying to show that thing a bit of unnatural. I don't know how that will go. I'm not very experienced, but I've seen that you are trying to enforce that emotion through a method not found very naturally, very dramatized, artificially. I felt that's my observation. I want to learn that part, the natural or unnatural emotion we are showing.
Thank you so much. And
thank you.
Very important. Thank you. The point is, for me, that's rather a new speech. So that's a very valid, that's an extremely powerful point, is when you look unnatural while delivering your speech. I have delivered, for example, another speech before, and maybe if somebody asks me to re-deliver it, you will find it more natural than this one. So that's also a very important point. If we have only 2 weeks for the contest, it might be a little hard to internalize that speech. I just delivered that speech in December. It was my first time to deliver it. I tested it, yes, just in a week, a couple of times before the contest. But that's the importance of preparation, our first point in the workshop tonight. And I'm gonna jump into something else. If anybody wants to participate later, we will share again. But if I can go to something very important before we even jump into the emotions that were kindly advised by many of the audience members, let me please take you to these very essential questions. Then we will go back to the emotions. I wanted you as audience, if you can, by the end of the workshop, if we have in the last 5 or 3 minutes of the workshop, to kindly advise what is my message in the speech in just 2 sentences at the most. What did you like about my speech in just a few words? What didn't you like and why? We already have 2 Toastmasters and DTMs advising that there were some kind of unnatural delivery in the speech. If you found any unanswered questions, and how did you feel after the speech? We'll get back to this, and I would kindly ask you to give me your feedback, and I'll repeat these questions quickly again. Okay, now comes the 6 emotions that you have kindly all shared. As we said, and before I mentioned them very quickly, these are just examples. In the delivery of the speech, to deliver the emotions, we all have to feel the emotion. If I didn't internalize the speech enough tonight, I need to practice it maybe 100 times before the next contest level. And this is true by many TEDx speakers were delivering the speech of their life or the TED Talk or their TED Talk. And it is mentioned in Talk Like TED, the book, that some of them practiced their speech 250 times before they delivered it on a span of 6 months or something. So that's the importance of practice, 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 being prepared. Our first key word in the workshop tonight. So when you feel, and then feel the emotion, then show it, then maybe narrate it. If it's not a dialogue between you and one of the characters, narrate it, say what happened. It was my last chance to pass that exam. And guess what? I failed. So that's a narration, not a dialogue. The more the dialogue is better, of course, but there are points in the speech where you're having sometimes to narrate what's happening or even narrate an internal dialogue with yourself. As some of the Toastmasters said, you showed happiness, then sadness. You misdirected or diverted the attention of the audience from one point or one emotion to the next. Then get the audience back to the main idea or the main part of your story. As we said, I just put the abbreviations. Every Friday night, I was happy at the beginning of the speech. Staring at me, I was afraid, surprised in a way. A round, red pimple. That's disgust. When you do this with your nose, that's disgust. And we'll see it in the facial expressions at the end of the workshop. Pops up. When you least expect it, this can be anger. It could be also something else. If I want to deliver it in a way of anger, I would say it like this. Pops up when you least expect it. Could be something like that if I made it the right kind of emotion. I call them permanent pimples. That's disgust. My job is a permanent pimple. Again, disgust. One of the gentlemen said, he offered me a job, showed me heaven, all kinds of happiness. Then it was hell, anger, or disappointment. If I just passed that exam, that is regret and still sadness or disappointment. The questions, has regret, has failure, has heartbreak ever been your permanent pimple? I really don't know the emotion here. If somebody can share it, will be great. One area, district, there was still happiness. Took the kids and left. And my ex-wife took the kids and left. I had the biggest heartbreak. That's sadness again. Excuse me if the emotion is not coming as it should be, but I'm just trying to give examples. And as I said, during the conversation of one of the Toastmasters, she brightly said, we were discussing how things were happy then sad, and then I paused at this point and said, the problem is always funny and the solution is always serious. Just remember that, and it was said by Darren LaCroix, 2001 world champion. Now, to help you answer the questions towards the end of the workshop, let's talk about the message. How many sentences should be in the message? Is there a particular number? If anybody can answer, how many sentences should be in the message, or the message phrase or phrases?
One of the participant guest DTM Faraz Farooq was mentioned 10 words, one sentence.
Great, sir. Thank you, DTM Farhaz, for being with us tonight. It's great. It's a great pleasure. One sentence is great. I have made this risk, DTM Farhaz, and the last speech I delivered, the speech of this workshop, I had 2 sentences in the message. And this is the first time I've ever done that. I hope it works. But if there are areas of improvement in even my message, I would be grateful if you advise. I said, the message was, yes, the speech title is Rise Above It. But when I was revealing my wife's advice to me, she said to me, control what you can, rise above the rest. There are for sure ways to try to shorten it to one sentence, but it's okay. Even if it goes up to 3 sentences, short sentences, it would be okay. However, if it's one sentence, that's the best message, phrase, or message of your speech.
Don't you think, TM Hesham, don't you think 2 sentences will be better? One to say the phrase or to say your message, the next one to justify it.
It is a good point. However, if the message is just one sentence and then you prove the message during the speech through your stories or examples, that will be the best. And it's actually out of experience. I will mention some speech titles which were also the speech message by a few world champions, and they really did the trick. And it is definitely a valid point. It's good to have 2 sentences sometimes, but the shorter the number of sentences, the better to have an effective message on the audience. So now is the part of the examples. There, today, the message phrase is rise above it. Yes, it was said through 2 sentences earlier in the speech, and I was trying to prove to the audience to rise above it or rise above your problems. But we find other sentences or a message with one sentence, like reach out, Pres Vasiljev, 2013 world champion of public speaking. There was the 2nd place winner in 2018, Cheryl Su, the Chinese Toastmaster who won 2nd place in 2018, turn around. These are just 2 examples. I'm not going to waste more time in that. But if you notice, the message, whether it was reach out or turn around or rise above it or build your bridges, they all started by a verb. And what kind of verb? Action verb. So this helps you have the call to action. It's easier to have a message with an action verb. Ed Tate says, when you write your speech and when you formulate your message, think about the 4 H. Head, to make the audience think. Humor, to make them entertained. Heart, to touch their emotions. And heavy, say something that matters. So always when you write your speech and think of the message of your speech, think of the 4 H, make the audience think, entertain them, touch their emotions, and say something that matters. And the speech intro is the attention grabber, as we said. It builds the connection between you and the audience. The more it is exciting and full of the 6 universal emotions in the world, the better it is. If you start your speech by a question or a provocative act or statement, I've said that before. 2015 world champion of public speaking, Mohammed said, do you think smoking kills? Everybody knows that eventually heavy smokers can die of a heart attack, for example, but he said, no, actually, the number of people dying from diabetes is twice the number of people dying from smoking. That's a provocative statement, whether it was true or not, but it definitely grabbed the attention of the audience. It's always good to start by a short personal story. Quotation is also okay, but if you go immediately into a short story and the climax scene of that story, for example, Pres Vasiljev, 2013, went immediately in the beginning of his winning speech, the World Championship speech, and said, the steering wheel jerked. I tried to keep the car in control. He immediately went into the scene when his tire got flat or burst because of driving. He didn't mention he was on the highway. He didn't mention anything about the story. He went immediately into the scene to grab the audience attention. Then, of course, acknowledging the MC or the contest chair and or relate to a group of the audience. And this was done by one of the world champions, 2003 world champion. He said, contest chair and anyone whose eyes got misty at the movies. So he was talking about the movie, the personal story at the beginning of his speech, and he was talking about how his little kid was making fun of him because he was crying because of the movie. So that's also a nice way to end the intro of your speech. The speech, the body of your speech includes the bulk of your message. It is where you have the bulk of proving your message, whether it is 1 sentence, 2 sentences, or 3 sentences. It is where you prove your message. It's always good to have small, simple, personal stories, which are easily original to the audience when you structure the body of your speech. It could be about one stories, but if they're short and sweet, personal, they're easily original and touch people's audience's hearts. It should be inspirational and entertaining as well. So one of the most important tips in the speech closing is not to add something new. For example, in Rise Above It, in an earlier version of my speech, I was saying, the problem is as big as you make it. Yes, it is related to the message in the speech, but it is something new. The audience will be thinking, did the speaker mention something about how big the size of the problem is? No, I didn't mention the size of the problem. So never try to add something new towards the conclusion of the speech. Always try to tie something back in the conclusion to the intro or the body. Like when I mentioned,
so that's all.
You will get a pimple on your face. Don't pop it. So I was referring to the beginning of my speech. Sorry, somebody was saying something? It's also preferable to say the title of your speech again, or the message phrase of your speech toward the end, to make the audience remember your call to action. And remember, the audience always remember the last thing you say the most. And it's a term called stopping power. At the end, you are stopping your speech with the call to action, with something that really grabbed the audience attention. So remember, it's the last line or few lines that you say in the speech are the most important, and these are the lines you have to really memorize very well to leave the right impact for long with the audience.
As mentioned, DTM, sorry to interrupt, and one point DTM Faraz has mentioned, very important point, thanks for emphasizing in Toastmaster Hesham, never add anything new at the end of the speech.
Yeah. We all fall in this trap, unfortunately, my friend. Here, I'm just quickly reflecting something that I've suffered a lot when I started competing. I always went left to the past. I always went right for the future. Sometimes I was at the beginning at the very front edge or the downstage of the stage, and I was talking about something in the past. So if we really organize where we stand, even in this small virtual stage, to have the present at the stage center, to have the past on the stage right, to have the future on stage left, also the future downstage, past upstage. These are points on the stage that if we follow, we will really be on track with respect to staging. They say staging is engaging. So if we think, why do we go for the right side? When we talk to the past, always remember in the English language, when you write a word, you write it from left to right. And if the audience are on the other side, they see the beginning of your word on your right, and they see the ending of your word on your left. So it is something that's related to speaking in English, because naturally, and many Toastmasters who live in the East or write from right to left, we used to go to the past on our left side. This is something that is kind of universal. If you're speaking in English, always put the past on your right side and future on your left side, future to the front, past to the back. And it would be really great if you have 3 stories in your speech. First story was in the past. Then when you reveal your message during the speech, you go back again to the past and say how you solved that kind of ordeal, whether if it was at work, whether in speaking, whether in a personal, emotional, sad moment of your life. So if we kind of stage our speech this way, it helps big time in our delivery. How are we with the time? Are we still okay? How many minutes do I have?
Toastmaster Wasim. Toastmaster Wasim.
Yes, you have 15 minutes left.
Very good. So I can maybe breathe a little and slow down a bit. Gestures. Gestures help make your scenes real. So let's take, for example, some part of the speech, if it wasn't natural enough. Always, it's useful to use your hands in general and gesture with them. And there are different types of gestures that we will talk about now. But gestures also make wherever you are not feeling natural delivering somehow real. So they make your scenes real. When you're gesturing with one hand, for example, pointing to a story that was in your past to your right side, it is very important to keep your left hand down. You don't want the audience looking at both hands when the main focus is on a certain part of your story. So always try to make the gesture when you're pointing past or future with one hand, and in other types of gesture, not to make the other hand steal the directive gesture with the main hand that you're gesturing with. I hope I was clear with that. Of course, there are exceptions, and many of us would gesture with both hands. That's completely fine.
Sorry to interrupt you, Toastmaster Hesham. As our agenda, I think we exceed 10 minutes, 12 minutes more. So if possible, if you can conclude in 5 minutes, it will be better.
Ready for that. Okay, there are different types of gestures. There are descriptive gestures. And descriptive gestures paint vivid scenes. They set up the punchline. For example, have you ever had a problem? Have you ever had a problem? Something pops up when you least expect it. This is kind of a way, when you're gesturing this way, you are painting to the audience how unexpectedly something happens. And then the punchline here is pops up when you least expect it. There are other examples. I don't want to take much more time with this. Other kinds of descriptive gesture is if when you describe the long hair of a woman, for example, or the long beard of a man. The second type of gesture is the directing gesture, when you motion somebody inside your office or inside your home. There are symmetric gestures, and these are the types of gestures when you start your speech, when you say, contest chair, fellow Toastmasters, you need to also always have an open posture and make yourself open to the audience with your symmetric kind of gesture. Contrasting gesture. Say in your story, you are pulling something from the floor. You are bending down. Areas below your waist show signs of tension, and they reflect contrasting gesture. If you are pulling something down from the floor or pulling something up, this is the kind of contrast that you build with your gestures during the speech. And these are contrasting gestures. Now comes the facial expressions. I will run through them quickly. The faces hopefully will show the kinds of facial expressions. As we said, we need to feel, then show our emotions through our face. Definitely you'll be smiling if you're saying something happy. And the best ways to practice facial expressions is in front of a mirror or through a Zoom meeting when you record your speech. It's very useful to do that. One of the things that helped me on the bigger stage is to sometimes exaggerate a little bit. And a good way to test your facial expressions in general is to watch your video with the sound off. See how your face was revealing your emotions. And this is the kind of sad face. I hope I got the right one. In anger, this is how you are angry. You frown and sometimes shout. In fear, you kind of open your mouth half open and freeze your face as well. And always remember to put your hands down. Whenever you want to reveal a good facial expressions, don't let other kind of body parts kind of steal the emotion from your face. Fear. Disgust, as we said earlier, you can wrinkle your nose a little bit, maybe raise one lip. And remember, your body speaks louder than any words. And the number one example for this is the famous Charlie Chaplin, who used to deliver many nice stories and scenes without uttering one word. I was hoping that we talk about the 5 questions, but always please remember, before any speech delivery, try to give your audience, I'll just go back quickly. Try to give your audience these 5 questions to help you improve your speech, to know if all the audience got the message or not, to know what they like, what they didn't like, and why. And if any part of the speech reflected that you didn't answer an unanswered question. And finally, how did they feel after the speech? I hope this workshop was fine. I'm sorry if I passed the time. And I really enjoyed it with you all. And we all had a great time with the participants replying on the emotions of in the speech. Thanks a lot, and back to you, Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Hesham. It was a wonderful and inspiration, knowledge base, and I really learned a lot. Even audience also enjoy it. I can see their expressions and they are sharing a lot. And thank you so much for being with us. I learned a lot speech or our audience as well as, and most of the things I have noticed for the evaluator to point out the speaker where he can improve. So a lot of improvement you have given for the speaker. Thank you so much. And anybody is having any questions, so we can have a chat message over here, so it can be addressed very fast way because our next speaker is waiting. So as per agenda, we are behind 5 minutes more. And thanks to Mr. Hesham, he finished his speech within his time, whatever you mentioned. Thank you. And we'll move on. And anybody is having questions, please send it over here. Thank you, Toastmaster Hesham. I would like our all audience to give him a huge round of applause. Even if you can unmute yourself also, you can give for his wonderful speech. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, audience.
Thank you, sir.
So now we will move on. Now our